Oh, goody.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Zombies here again, and today we're back with another Marvel Snap video. So in this one, we're taking a look at decks for tonight's hot location, which is Sinister London. This one's always felt like a big fan favorite, lets you do some pretty wacky things, getting a whole lot of power onto the board. So we're going to take a look at some good decks for it for all the different pools. Starting off with pool 1, we have a pretty decent ongoing deck. I think Iron Man is really a pretty big all-star in a location like this. Obviously doubling up on Iron Man has always been powerful with things like Mystique, but now we get to do it just by playing into the location. So very, very good card that I think is going to see a bunch more play during this location. The idea with this deck is we just have a bunch of good ongoing cards. There are only so many in pool 1, but there are more than enough to make this kind of deck work. So we have Ant-Man, Colossus, who's pretty good with some of the more negative locations, Mr. Fantastic to spread the power around, Captain America to boost up our lane, has some nice synergy with Iron Man there, Cosmo as a bit of denial for what the opponent might be trying to do, Iron Man and Blue Marvel as our main ways of buffing up our lanes, and then Onslaught and Spectrum at the top end to either buff up our board, go wide a little bit, or just really make that Iron lane go super duper tall, and then hopefully get Onslaught in the second Iron Man lane from the Sinister London. Then we just have a few other fill-in cards here to fill out the curve, just Nightcrawler. Star-Lord seems pretty decent because a lot of time people are going to be playing in London, so you have a better idea of where they're going to be playing their cards, so you can more easily get him to 5 power. And Sentinel, just so we have some power to get on the board and stuff to play in the early game. Then we have a pool 1 Kazoo list. Pretty standard stuff here, but we do have a few special tech inclusions for the location. Main ones here being things like Rocket Raccoon, who, like Star-Lord, we know where they're likely to play their card. So this is more often than not a 1/4, which is really, really nice. Scarlet Witch, since we have a lot of cheap stuff, once we've gotten our value out of the location, we can just get rid of it before the opponent can get a bunch of value out of it. Wolfsbane, since the board is going to be filling up more, so this will more often be a higher power card. Then the rest is pretty standard zoo stuff, just a bunch of good 1-drops here that will get buffed up by our Khazar and Blue Marvel, and American Chavez, so we hopefully draw the cheap stuff we want early on in the game, and if Sinister London is still around, she's not a bad thing to slam into it on the final turn. Moving on to pool 2, we actually have an Iron Man Zoo deck. Zoo gets some powerful upgrades in pool 2, so we have a lot better quality of 1-drops, making the deck a lot more efficient. The main upgrades we have here are things like Sunspot, who, even though he got nerfed recently, is still a very, very powerful card. Agent 13, now this is kind of the Electra spot. You can still run Electra here, but I do think Agent is a pretty decent choice of 1-drop, and sometimes the card it gives you can be either very useful or, at the very least, very fun. Iceman for more additional disruption, probably one of the more powerful 1-drops in the game. And then the rest of the deck is very similar, but we do add in Iron Man, as now that we have some greater quality of 1-drops to spam, I think Iron Man gets a bit better with the location. Then our second pool 2 deck here is the good old Devil Dino deck. So I think Dino's pretty good for this one. Not only can we leverage a very big Dino into the location, which can be pretty good, but we also have the Storm package here, which can be good for just shutting off the location once we've gotten a little bit of value from it. Got some good 1-drops here in Sunspot, Iceman, and Nightcrawler. Some decent tempo plays on 2 with Angela, Armor, Scarlet Witch giving us another way to close out the location, since we might not always want to storm it, since we know the opponent is going to play into that. Lizard, who's always very good with Storm. Cosmo to shut down on reveal effects and protect our Dino alongside Armor. Moon Girl to double up on our Dino and keep her hand big. Dino is our big threat. And Chavez for some more early game draw consistency and a decent thing to play on turn 6. Then moving on into pool 3 and above, starting out with a pool 3 Devil Dino deck. Really solid deck, especially not needing any pool 4 or pool 5 cards. Very similar from the pool 2 one. However, we do get some upgrades to the deck in Quinjet, who's really good at reducing some of the other stuff we generate to hand. Coulson, who I think ends up actually being a lot better than Moon Girl a lot of the time. Really powerful card to just slam on turn 3 as opposed to doing Moon Girl on 4. White Queen to help give us a bit more consistency in keeping our hand large, also gives us a bit of information, and then just some additional top end in things like Doom, who obviously has good synergy with Storm, and She-Hulk, who is just a nice big threat that has good synergy with our Sunspot. You could also go with the Darkhawk version of the deck if you have access to him and Rock Slide. I do think that is probably the better version of Dino, and you can very easily make those substitutions if you have access to those cards. Then we have the deck that I used to get most of the way to Infinite this month, which is Electro Ramp. I found this deck to be very effective, very fun to play, and very budget friendly, being a pool 3 only deck. So for the early game here, we have Sunspot and Ebony Maw. Maw will be especially good with London, as we can throw it in the non-London lane and then have an easier way of getting more cards into the lane and getting that really nice rate of 1 cost for 7 power. Electro, Wave, and Jubilee serve as our main ramp sources to cheat our big stuff into play. Leech and Sandman are more of our control elements to shut down decks that are trying to play a lot of cards or do a bigger combo going into the final turn. Arrow is obviously very good when the opponent can only play 1 card a turn. Doom, really good with Odin and just going wide with the board. Chavez, so we more consistently get our ramp early on. And Magneto as just one more big threat that can sometimes surprise the opponent by moving their powerful 3 and 4 cost cards into 1 lane. Then moving on, we have the new version of Patriot. So this is a deck I've been really liking a lot, and it's another one that can make very good use of Iron Man for this location. We have a few cards here that obviously get buffs from the Patriot effect, such as Wasp, the Hood with his Demon, Shocker. This is normally the Squirrel Girl spot, but given that the board is going to be more full, putting Shocker here instead. Mysterio, who is obviously very good with the Mysterio clones, especially when combined with Bast. And then the other cards here, we have Bishop, who we are playing enough cheap stuff to buff up the Bishop pretty decently. Shang-Chi as a bit of interaction. Iron Man and Blue Marvel as our main ongoing effects to buff up our board aside from Patriot. Mystique to copy those effects. And Valkyrie to help swing a lane going into the final turn. Plus, she has really, really good synergy with our things like Iron Man and other ongoing effects to help break the tie. And then Bast. Bast is just really good with pretty much all the cards in our deck. Either doesn't hurt us or is a significant buff to all of our cards. Next up, we have a Thanos control deck. So there are definitely a lot of versions of Thanos still going around. Lockjaw probably being the more popular one, but I do think this one's probably a bit better for the location. We have some powerful tools to help control the lanes here in things like Spider-Man, Professor X, and Valkyrie. I do think Spider-Man is always going to be strong with Sinister London, as well as Professor X just to lock down 2 lanes going into the final turn. Very powerful. Daredevil helps us with that as well, so we kind of know where we should be locking down. Then we have some early game cards here in the Demon with the Hood, Bast to buff up our stones and other cheap stuff, Beast to rebuy some of our powerful effects from things like the stone or the Hood. Bishop gets some nice benefits from the fact that we're playing a lot of cards. Shang-Chi, kind of the other card like Valk we have to hopefully swing a lane. Chavez for a bit more draw consistency. And Thanos, mainly for the stones, but sometimes just decent to slam, especially if we've played all our stones that game. Last but not least, we have a deck for the Season Pass card here, Hitmonkey. Bounce has been a pretty powerful archetype, and I think it's going to take good use of this location. So, pretty standard bounce deck here. We have a bunch of early game threats, such as Iceman, Korg, Bass to buff up our stuff, and the Hood, who's obviously really good with being bounced, Angela, Hitmonkey, and Black Widow, all very good at being bounced and have decent synergy just coming into play early on. Beast and Falcon as our main bounce methods to get these cards back into our hand to keep playing them over and over. Mysterio, because he has very good synergy with things like Bast, as well as good synergy with Bishop here, who appreciates the fact that we're playing a lot of cards out. And then Darkhawk as just one threat that can go really, really tall and benefits from the fact that we're bouncing our cards to pump him up, like Korg and Black Widow. So those are all the decks for tonight's hot location, Sinister London. As usual, you can find the links to all the decks in the description if you want to import them into the game directly. But that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.